Thank you. Welcome. This is going to be a long video, moderately long, with a lot to cover because I'm reading everything. But looking like this with my eyes wide open because I have a mix of indignation and surprise. And it's just an avalanche of information. Also of rumors, of course, and also of speculations. That's why, after processing everything in my head, I'm going to try to share my opinion here about what happened yesterday, or the aftermath of what happened yesterday. Well, aftermath is not quite the right word. I haven't chosen the best word, not at all. The impact of what happened yesterday, the fallout from yesterday, but that hasn't died. It's more alive than ever. And apparently there's some kind of movement going on to shield certain people from responsibility. Mbappe says, well, it's just that, look, the club, I think there's an important message from Mbappe to the club. Mbappe has second, third, and fourth messages that go beyond what he says literally. This guy's incredibly smart, really incredibly smart, man. And then also Florentino, I understand that he wants to make us believe that he has no responsibility for what's happening in there in the locker room. Therefore, there are people who are saying that he's dumping all the blame on Arbeloa. And Arbeloa would be taking the blame coming from above and the blame coming from the most famous player on his team. So it's not a good day for Alvaro. He held a press conference, and I think he did great, even though I've criticized him before. I mention this because someone might ask how it's relevant to what we're watching. I'm starting with this because in this, we all, as Real Madrid fans, need to be absolutely united and complain. And let's get back that assertive tone of this channel, which this channel has always had. When there's self-criticism within Madrid, people often say they're leaving because they don't like what's being said. I know. That's what happens when you're independent and have your own opinion, right? But what we will always agree on, even with those who have left, of course, is that we have to defend the club and we have to report this. We have to report that this association, what's it called? What are these called? It's the official account of the Spanish Association of Football Referees. Well, they went and filed a complaint against Florentino Pérez. All right. At the competition committee, a request was made for disciplinary proceedings against the president of Real Madrid over his comments against the refereeing body. They say that accusing the refereeing community of systemic corruption for 2 decades is not criticism, it's slander. No, excuse me, but Florentino Pérez hasn't said that. Florentino Pérez has done, as we all have. He quoted what Judge Aguirre said during the case's investigative phase in 2 court orders. Barcelona Negrera, in his own words. Systemic corruption of the refereeing establishment. It's just that Florentino has this in the bag. Of course, if they want to open a case against Florentino now, he hasn't said anything that a judge hasn't already said. It's true that there's no judgment, but come on, it's a judge's ruling, you know? And the resulting systemic corruption in the whole of Spanish refereeing, this was one of the rulings. Well, it's signed by Judge Joaquin Aguirre Lopez, the presiding magistrate of the investigating court number 1 in Barcelona, the one who was previously investigating this Barcelona Negrera case. You know, there's a female judge now, right? Because this gentleman retired. Well, that's it. It's not just upsetting that they want to discipline him or that they asked the competition committee to open disciplinary proceedings. Florentino is being targeted for saying something that didn't even come from his mouth, but from a judge. And yet they've also had the chance to actually try to discipline someone who did say it himself, not a judge, Laporta. Laporta has signed this recently. Well, this is about, hold on a second. Wait, Laporta said the competition is rigged. Wait, okay. Our rival has gained points thanks to referee decisions this year, last year, and the year before. Certain referees always make our games harder. Laporta delivered a historic rant against referees. It was an unacceptable, intolerable disgrace. Really? This was against the UEFA referees, right? He complained about UEFA, and he also complained about the league in Spain. Having been one of those who paid Negrera, and he even quadrupled his salary, right? It's incredible, man. We absolutely have to stand up to this. I think Florentino has already won. If they want to go after him, come on, don't mess with me anyway. And in that, we are soldiers of the club. Always with the club. Related to this, today something has been published in The Objective regarding that complaint called Pelican 1 or the Pelican 1 dossier and the Pelican 2 dossier. Interesting, huh? This seems like a movie, doesn't it? That part where Juan Luis Martín de Pozuelo, Tomás Rubio, Ricardo Ramos Neira, and all of us who are collaborating there as much as possible, we have also submitted it. So the more noise, the better, both to UEFA, FIFA, and the Spanish Football Federation, right? But according to that dossier, or what The Objective extracts from it, pay attention to the headline. UEFA hides whether the Spanish Football Federation complies with the article so that Barça can be in the Champions League. And how does this make sense? The regulations require reporting on events like the Negreira case because of their influence on the results. And my friend, that's one of the things we're also complaining about. In the other complaint, Spanish Football Federation, have you sent documentation to UEFA? Have you told them what's happening here? Through the ethical channel? Since you depend on UEFA, the Spanish Football Federation, right? And is FIFA going to take any action because its code of ethics also depends on UEFA and FIFA since they are supranational organizations? Is UEFA above them? And UEFA, what will they do? They depend on UEFA and FIFA, right? This is any country's federation, isn't it? That's why in Italy, when Calciopoli happened, is it the football code? Or did they just comply with what FIFA asked them to do, naturally? All right, let's read the information. UEFA does not state if the Spanish Football Federation met the criteria set by Europe's top football authority for approving Barcelona's participation. Champions League. Do they participate in the competition? They must comply with Annex H of Article 4 of the regulations, which details that any situation in which the candidate team is directly or indirectly involved in an activity intended to influence the result of a match or competition must be formally reported each year. I must remind you that UEFA requires the Spanish Federation to comply, but UEFA has not clarified whether the Spanish Federation did so. It's unbelievable. And now we're talking about this after Barça has been playing since 2023, because by then they were already involved. Well, I think they had already been eliminated from the Europa League, right? But then they were already in the Champions League for 23-24, 24-25, and 25-26. 3 Champions Leagues in a row. Invited, of course, it's always the invited teams that qualify. Well, this confirmation is the responsibility of both the club and the participant. A detail included in the anonymous Pelicano 2.0 report, which has already been under investigation by the highest governing body of European football since last December, as published by The Objective. FIFA is also reviewing this documentation for UEFA, which is 179 pages long, and UEFA, along with the tax agency and proceedings from the judicial police, are establishing connections to demonstrate that the Negreira case was not an isolated incident, but rather systemic. The courts have already concluded that the Catalan club paid 8.4 million euros in consulting fees to Eric Negreira, vice president of the CTA, blah, blah, blah. Well, this newspaper has contacted both UEFA and the Spanish Football Federation to find out whether the mentioned documentation has been sent and updated in the case of FC Barcelona, as required by Champions League regulations. The Objective has not received a response from the Federation, while official sources from UEFA have stated that they have no comments on this matter at this time. Damn, this is where you can catch them, man. You can catch them here. Pelicano 2.0 highlights the role that the Federation plays in this regard. The organization appeared in March 2023 as a private complainant in the criminal investigation of the case, being the one who must sign Annex H together with Barcelona to confirm to UEFA that there are no indications or doubts about the club's activities regarding its admission to the Champions League. They skipped that. Specifically, UEFA regulations state that the federation or the equivalent body in each country must confirm that the club has not been directly or indirectly involved in any activity aimed at organizing or influencing the outcome of a match at the national or international level. Since March 1, 2016, that is 10 years before the relevant UEFA club competitions regulations came into effect. The UEFA campaign. If the club and the respective member federation cannot confirm the above, the club and the member federation must provide in the attached form all useful information currently in their possession that is related to any such activity affecting the club. And by the way, this hasn't been done. These things like Barça is going to play in the Champions League, Madrid is going to play in the Champions League. Okay, it seems like it's something that just happens automatically. And yes, but there's paperwork and forms and things, paperwork and forms and all that bureaucracy you have to fill out and all that, which are all in the end, well, things that are always done. And in the end, nobody looks at them, my friend, but someone actually looked into this and asked about it, of course. And that's very good. By the way, because it's that fine print, but it's what determines the legality of things. And this is where you can catch these scumbags, because the federation became a party in the criminal case, but we've always filed complaints here. And apparently there are 2 complaints, in this one, and in ours. The fact that the federation, how is it possible, is acting as a private prosecutor. In the Barcelona Negreira case, that is, translated into language everyone can understand, the federation considers Barcelona guilty of sports corruption. That is what Barcelona is being tried for, or will be tried for. We are in the investigation phase with Barcelona. One is appearing as the accuser. Does that mean that you are accusing that defendant, Barcelona here, and the presidents as defendants, and Barcelona as a legal entity of the crime of sports corruption, which is what they are going to be judged for? But then the federation and the lawyers show up. I can't remember whether it was the league or the federation. I'm not sure if they didn't ask the question or only asked one. Does that mean you want this? Then why are you appearing as a party? There's an inconsistency there, and it's even more obvious here in an administrative procedure like this one. They don't report on that, but it fits perfectly. Great job. By the way, also in this dossier, which is anonymous, it's anonymous, and it's bothering the federation and UEFA has responded. They haven't said anything about that, probably because they might get caught here. Obligation to report within 14 days. Annex H establishes the commitment to inform the UEFA administration in writing within 14 working days about any incident of information related to the admission criteria as defined in the provisions mentioned above, the UEFA club competitions regulations that have changed from the signing of this form until the end of the UEFA Champions League 26-27. What I see here is that it's in danger. Should Barça be in the Champions League next year because of this? And it would have to be reviewed. I don't know to what extent that's punishable or not. I understand that it is by Barcelona and the federation. The earlier ones date back to 23, when they didn't notify since the spring of 23, according to Article 4.03 of the UEFA regulations. For the Champions League, the failure in substance or form to report to UEFA to make the affected club ineligible. According to Article 4.10, the next team in the standings would qualify for the Champions League, allowing Celta, Getafe, Real Sociedad, Atleti, or Club de Loa to participate. To teams near 7th and 8th place, beware, as there are precedents like the Turkish team Besiktas. We need to go all in on this. UEFA already sanctioned the Turkish team Besiktas in 2013 due to suspicions that they had participated in activities related to match fixing. By enforcing this specific regulation for European competitions, and regardless of the disciplinary process continuing, they applied their zero tolerance policy. That's something that hasn't happened with Barça. And that's why Laporta went to sweet talk Ceferin in Slovenia to have lunch with him one day. In the ruling of the European Court of Arbitration for Sport, Besiktas versus UEFA, the interpretation of this regulation is addressed specifically and in detail, which could very well apply. FC Barcelona, in its admission to the Champions competition, the court sided with UEFA. And regarding the statement that it is not necessary to prove that the activity achieved its purpose or even went very far, but that it is enough that there was an attempt, basically they're giving us a crystal clear picture, and if this is taken seriously, Barca won't go to the next Champions League. I don't know what you think, so let me know in the comments. It also determined that the conduct at issue may have as its objective to influence the result of a match, even if that is not the only objective or the main objective of the activity, and that an activity which might seem illicit at first glance could violate the UEFA rule, considering all the circumstances of a case, if this activity could have an influence on the result of a particular match. Anyway, I think it looks good, but of course, will you also let me know in the comments? No, don't think that. This isn't going to be, nothing is going to happen to them. No les va a pasar nada. Well, I don't know, but anyway, I still have so many things left to tell, but how long have we been here? 15 minutes already, right? That's a lot. I'm going to make a second part of the video, and I'll do it later for tonight. Spain time afternoon in the US. Otherwise, this is going to be way too long. I've focused more on the UEFA issue because it really blew my mind, the whole thing with UEFA and Barça. But we'll talk later. There's a photo of Alaba with Judd and with Mbappe, and there are a few things, some possible interpretations that are very juicy, unfortunately, because of the times we're living in, but that we have to talk about. We can't avoid it because the Real Madrid locker room and sporting future are at stake. A moment like this, when elections have been called, the situation is tough, so I'll leave it for the next one, and there I'll tell you my theories. Sorry, I did this on the fly. I plan to cover it here, but I don't want a separate video for that topic. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, comment, share, and see you next time. Bye.